"You need a home, and I need a mommy," said the little girl to the young homeless woman at the bus stop. The small voice rang out like a whisper between snowflakes. Elliot Monroe spun around, startled, phone still pressed to his ear. His 4-year-old daughter, Lila, stood in front of a bus stop bench, her mittened hands resting gently on the lap of a young woman wrapped in a tattered coat. The woman didn't move. Her eyes, pale blue and exhausted, blinked slowly. She looked more like a shadow than a person, curled into herself, clutching a faded cloth tote like a lifeline. Snow clung to the golden strands of her messy hair, and her lips were slightly parted as she tried to catch her breath. Lila reached out, placing a bear-shaped cookie in her lap with tender care. "You can live with us," she said, with the pure conviction only a child could muster. "Lila!" Elliot rushed over, ending the call and pulling his daughter back instinctively. He knelt beside her and looked up at the woman, scanning her with practiced caution. "Miss, what are you doing with my daughter?" The woman slowly raised her hands, palms open. "Nothing. I didn't touch her. She just came over." Her voice was hoarse but steady. Elliot narrowed his eyes. The woman's skin was flushed, too red in the wrong places, her mouth slightly blue from the cold. A quiet shiver ran through her limbs as she clutched the tote tighter. "I didn't ask for anything," she said, lowering her gaze. "But thank you for having such a kind child." Elliot's chest tightened. Lila looked up at him, confused but not afraid. "She gave her cookie to a cat first," Lila added matter-of-factly. He followed her gesture and saw it, half a torn bread roll in the snow near the bench, where a scrawny, trembling cat now pawed at the crumbs. The other half was clearly gone. Elliot glanced back at the woman. She hadn't begged. She hadn't spoken first. And yet something about her silence felt louder than anything he had heard all day. "I think we should go," he muttered. He took Lila's hand and turned to leave. Behind him, he heard the woman shift. She was trying to stand, slowly, carefully, like she did not want to make trouble. But her knees buckled. She stumbled sideways, colliding hard with the icy metal post of the bus stop shelter before crumpling to the ground. Elliot turned just in time to see her fall. "Dad!" Lila cried, tugging at his coat. Elliot ran to her side. "Miss? Can you hear me?" No response. He crouched down, pressing 2 fingers gently against her neck. Her pulse was there, but weak. Her forehead was slick with sweat, burning hot even as her skin was ice cold. He saw a scrape on her hand, raw and red. Her breathing was shallow, lips pale and cracked. This woman was sick. He looked around. No cars passing, no one nearby, no time to wait for help. Without hesitation, Elliot scooped her up. She was shockingly light. Her coat opened slightly as he lifted her, revealing torn sleeves and bruised arms. She didn't resist, only whimpered softly against his chest. "Let's go, Lila," he said, voice low and urgent. "Is she going to die?" Lila asked, eyes wide. "Not if we get her warm." They moved quickly, snow crunching underfoot. Elliot's house wasn't far, 3 blocks at most, but every step felt heavier. He didn't know this woman, didn't know her name, didn't know her story, but something had shifted inside him the moment she fell. He could have walked away, should have, maybe, but he didn't. As they neared the porch, Lila whispered, "I still think she's our home now." Elliot didn't answer. He just opened the door. The fire crackled softly. Isabel stirred beneath the warm weight of a wool blanket, her eyelashes fluttering against her cheeks. The air smelled faintly of cedar and cinnamon. As she opened her eyes, the room slowly came into focus, the soft amber glow of a fireplace, polished wood floors, a tall bookshelf filled with architectural books, and the faint hum of something cooking from a nearby kitchen. She was on a long sofa, a pillow behind her head. Her coat was folded neatly at the foot of the couch. She didn't remember being brought here, just the cold, the bus stop, the little girl. Then she heard the scratching of crayons. Lila sat cross-legged on the rug, tongue between her teeth in focus, drawing with fierce concentration. Her paper was filled with color, 3 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one small, and in the middle, one with a halo of yellow hair. A Above them, in shaky but deliberate letters, she'd written, "My home." Isabel blinked, stunned. She tried to sit up, but her head throbbed and her body protested. That movement was enough to alert Lila, who jumped up with a smile and hurried toward her. "You woke up," Leela grinned, proudly holding up her picture. "That's us." Isabel rasped, her voice barely audible. Lila nodded seriously. "Daddy says you can stay until you're better, but I think you should stay longer." Before Isabel could respond, Elliot entered the room, his expression unreadable. He set down a glass of water and a small bowl of soup on the coffee table. "You passed out in the snow," he said flatly. "I didn't have a choice. You needed help." "When you're better, you'll leave." His tone wasn't cruel, just measured. But Isabel felt the sting of it. "Thank you," she said softly, lowering her gaze. Lila lingered beside her, clearly wanting to chat more, but Elliot gently took his daughter's hand. Let her rest. The rest of the day passed quietly. At dinner, Isabel insisted on sitting at the breakfast bar, separate from Elliot and Lila's usual spot. She ate slowly, politely, careful not to ask for anything more than what was offered. When Elliot wasn't looking, she smiled at Lila's chatter about school, her princess costume, and her plan to build a snow bakery in the backyard. But she kept her eyes down whenever Elliot glanced her way. Later, as she helped clear the dishes, she reached for a tray of cups. The loose sleeve of her sweater slipped down her forearm. Elliot's eyes caught something. A long scar, raised and jagged, ran across her wrist, almost hidden by years of faded skin. He said nothing, but the image etched itself into his mind. That night, long after the house had gone quiet, Elliot lay awake, reading in bed. Then he heard it. A soft sound from the living room. A groan, muffled and pained. He slipped out of bed and walked barefoot to the couch. Isabel was curled into herself, eyes tightly shut, her face pale and clammy. She whimpered again, almost soundlessly. Elliot hesitated, then picked up the phone. An hour later, a private physician arrived. The woman barely woke as the doctor examined her. "She's severely dehydrated. Fever of 102, the doctor murmured. "She needs fluids, rest, and warmth." The doctor paused, looking at Elliot. "Does she have insurance? Any next of kin we can notify?" Isabel stirred weakly, her voice breaking as she mumbled, "No one. There's no one who needs to know if I'm alive or not." Her words hung in the air like frost on glass. The doctor didn't press. He finished up, left instructions, and departed into the snowy night. Elliot stood there for a long time, watching her sleep. He didn't know her story, but he knew pain when he saw it. He'd seen that same expression in the mirror years ago, when the hospital had called about his wife, and he was left with a newborn, and a silence too loud to bear. Before going back upstairs, Elliot walked into the kitchen. The next morning, Isabel woke to sunlight filtering through the curtains. Her head still throbbed, but the fever had lessened. She blinked as she noticed a steaming mug on the table beside her. The scent of ginger and honey rose from the tea, and beneath the mug, a small folded napkin. She opened it. "You're not invisible." The handwriting was neat, measured. Her lips trembled. For the first time in what felt like years, someone had seen her, really seen her. The next morning, the house smelled of thyme and ginger. Isabel moved quietly through the kitchen, her golden hair loosely tied, sleeves rolled up. She had insisted on helping. "Just let me contribute," she had said softly. "I feel better when I'm useful." Elliot had not argued. Now she stood at the stove, stirring a pot of soup made from leftover vegetables. The kitchen looked different with her in it, warmer. Lila sat at the table, humming as she colored. Elliot walked in, laptop under his arm. "That smells familiar." Isabel glanced back with a faint smile. "Just something simple. I learned it from a retired couple I stayed with in Queens. They taught me how to turn scraps into comfort." He took a spoonful, froze. It tasted exactly like the soup his wife used to make. Rosemary, pepper, and a soft, lingering sweetness he could never name. He looked up at Isabel. She was calm, unaware of the tidal wave inside him. Present, like this was normal, like she belonged. But something pulled at him. Not quite mistrust, more like a reflex. Years of protecting Lila. Years of surviving through logic, not feeling. That night, after Lila had gone to bed, he searched. It did not take long. The headline was second on the list: a promising fashion student, accused of stealing designs from NY Showcase. There was a photo. Isabel. Younger, polished, bright-eyed, accused but not convicted. Still, her name had been enough to ruin her. Elliot leaned back, the glow of the screen painting sharp lines across his face. He wanted to believe she was the woman he'd begun to see, but the doubt crept in like cold under a door. The next day, he caught her in the hallway. "Something on your mind?" she asked. He hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." He showed her the article. She stared for a moment, then looked up, not surprised. "Just tired." "That's me," she said. "Did you?" "No," she cut in gently. "I didn't." Silence. She crossed her arms. "People believed I did. Sponsors pulled out. My landlord raised the rent. My friends vanished. And the guy I trusted? He had already emptied my account." Elliot stayed quiet. She let out a humorless laugh. "I figured you'd look me up. You seem like someone who does not like loose ends." He flinched. She was right. She turned away. "I didn't steal anything. That design was mine. But after a while, people didn't want the truth. They just wanted someone to blame." Then she looked at him. "So, tell me, do you believe me?" He opened his mouth, closed it, hesitated. That was all she needed. "Thanks," she said softly, "for your honesty." She walked back to the guest room and began to gather her things. When Leela saw her at the door, her eyes widened. "You're leaving?" Isabel knelt down. "I have to, sweetheart." Lila held out her stuffed bear, Teddy. "So, you won't be alone." Isabel's eyes filled. She hugged the bear, then the little girl, long and tight. Elliot stood by the stairs, frozen, watching his daughter cling to a woman she had known for days, but trusted like family, broke something inside him. Isabel didn't say goodbye. She kissed Lila's forehead, opened the door, and disappeared into the evening. That night, Elliot tried to work, tried to sleep, but Lila wouldn't rest. "She didn't even say goodbye," she whispered. "I know," Elliot murmured, kneeling beside her bed. "She was our family." Elliot's voice caught. "She was someone special." Lila pointed to her drawing taped to the wall. 3 figures, arms wrapped around each other. Below, written in crayon, "Please stay." Elliot turned away, but not fast enough to hide the tears. He didn't know what had shattered more that night, his trust or his silence. It was past bedtime when Elliot first noticed Lila's absence from bed. He found the hallway empty and the living room door slightly ajar. Following the soft rumble of the street lamp, he stepped onto the porch and saw her tiny frame through the falling snow. Lila's slippers crunched in the drift as she limped down the driveway. Elliot's heart twisted with panic. "Lila?" he called. She didn't answer. He hurried after her, breath-catching, cold in the air. She was already halfway down the block, following a faint glow. Just ahead, Isabel sat by a street lamp, her coat wrapped tight but not enough. She was humming quietly, unreadable. But after training in control and detachment, Elliot remained silent, until the sudden sound of a stumble, then a low cry. Lila had collapsed onto her hand, tears mixing with snowflakes. Blood oozed from her palm, staining the snow a soft red. Elliot broke into a run, but before he could reach them, Isabel was there. She knelt beside Lila without hesitation. "Hold still, sweetheart," she murmured, folding a handkerchief from her coat pocket to bind the wound. "We'll get you back inside soon." She pressed the scarf gently, soothed Lila's tears with warm hands. The street lamp haloed her hair. All Elliot saw was a figure stepping into the light. A stranger turned caregiver. He jogged the last few steps. Lila looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. Isabel brushed a strand of hair from the child's face and sighed. Elliot crouched beside them, voice hoarse. "Lila, you frighten me," Lila sniffled. "I wanted to find her." Elliot looked up at Isabel. The city had nothing to do with them at this moment. The distant buildings faded. Lila's hand trembled in hers, and the way Isabel held her spoke more than words ever could. He swallowed. The armor he'd worn for years, of professional distance and emotional caution, cracked in that moment. He hadn't loved like this before, not so suddenly, not so fiercely. "Thank you," he said softly. Lila watched as Isabel tied the handkerchief. The warmth in her voice, the gentleness of her touch, the kind of nurturing Elliot had thought lost to his daughter after her mother passed. For a heartbeat he felt his heart ache, not from loss, but from fear of losing what he hadn't realized he could gain. He knelt and met Isabel's eyes. The snow drifting behind her looked like quiet confetti falling from a sky that didn't know to stop. He began, voice thick. "We need you." The words felt fragile in the cold air, but still true. Lila gripped Isabel's coat. "Don't leave again, Mommy." Isabel's eyes went wide, her breath caught, and for a trembling second she stared at the two of them. The father, who'd let his defenses fall without words, and the daughter, whose belief had cracked open her heart. Lila's small voice repeated softly, "Please, don't." Elliot swallowed hard, pain and hope tumbling together inside him. All at once, everything changed. Not because of explanations or rational words, but because two people wrapped a child in a way that made an imperfect moment feel sacred. Without waiting, Elliot pulled them both inside, the door shut on the snow and the street lamp. Inside, Lila rested her cheek against Isabel's sleeve. Isabel held her close. Elliot stood behind them, warm despite the cold, retreating outside. In that unspoken moment, Elliot let go of fear, because the thought of letting her go again felt unbearable, and for the first time, he believed some doors deserved to stay open. The offer came casually, almost too casually. "You're good with her," Elliot said one evening, not looking directly at Isabel. "Would you consider staying a few afternoons each week? Teaching her how to draw?" Isabel blinked, taken aback. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "She lights up around you." So Isabel returned, not as a guest this time, but not fully part of the home either. Somewhere in between, a warm presence in the kitchen, a soft voice during stories, fingers smudged with charcoal and flour as the days passed gently by. One Saturday afternoon, they gathered in the kitchen to bake. Lila, perched on her stool, wore an apron that hung nearly to her ankles. Flour dusted her nose. "We need extra sugar, Mommy," she chirped without realizing, and Isabel froze. But Elliot only glanced up. He said nothing. Isabel smiled faintly and kept stirring. After the cookies were in the oven, Lila pulled out her markers and paper. She sketched 3 hands, one large, one slender, and one tiny, all overlapping in the center of a sun. She scribbled the words in careful block letters. "This is love." Elliot looked at it, and something inside his chest cracked open just a little more. Later, after Lila had fallen asleep, the house took on a quiet rhythm, like a held breath. The fireplace glowed low. Isabel sat curled on the couch, her hands around a mug Elliot had placed in front of her minutes earlier. "You've made this place lighter," he said quietly, taking the seat across from her. She smiled but looked away. "It's your home. I'm just passing through." "No," he said. "No, it's more than that." His voice was different tonight, lower, closer, the kind that made walls feel thin. She turned to him, and in the soft dimness their eyes locked. He leaned forward, and for a fleeting second, the world was silent enough to believe in second chances. But just before his lips met hers, Isabel pulled back. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't be her." Elliot froze. "I know," he said, voice tightening. "I'm not asking you to." "You're not?" Isabel whispered, stepping back. "Then why does it feel like I'm being measured against a ghost?" Elliot stood now too, the distance between them like a tightrope. "Because you won't let yourself be seen," he said. "You think I want someone else, but I want you. Your scars, your silence, your strength. I don't want perfect. I want real." She was trembling. "You say that," she said softly. "But I've been left before. I believed once. It cost me everything." He kept his hands in his pockets. "Nothing ever happened," she pointed out. There never ever have been any real setbacks. You remind me of that. So you'd rather leave first? He asked, bitter. Before you even let anyone choose you? Isabel didn't answer. Her eyes shimmered, not with anger, but with sorrow. And then, without another word, she turned and walked out the door. Elliot didn't stop her. His fists curled tight at his sides as the door clicked shut behind her. He stood in the silence, the unfinished moment suspended in the air like smoke. He hadn't meant to fall for her, but he had, and she hadn't meant to run. But she did. Because love, when you've been burned by it, feels more like fire than warmth. That night, as he passed by Lila's room, he saw her still awake, cradling the stuffed bear Isabel had once mended for her. Is she coming back? Lila asked sleepily. Elliot stood in the doorway for a long time, unsure what to say. I don't know, he finally whispered. But I hope she does. And in the soft hush of that moment, a man and his daughter held on to hope, even as the woman they both needed walked into the night, because sometimes the bravest thing is not falling in love. It's staying when it gets too real. The apartment was unusually quiet that morning. No laughter echoed from the kitchen. No soft humming of lullabies. No scent of tea or paint or warm cookies. Only silence. Elliot stirred his coffee absently at the kitchen counter, his tie loosened, eyes on the floor. Lila sat at the table, chin resting in her small hands, crayons untouched beside her. The seat across from her, the one Isabel usually filled, was empty, and had been for 3 days. He had not told Lila everything. He didn't have the words. He didn't even know if Isabel had left for good. But then that afternoon, when Elliot went to straighten the guest room Isabel had quietly made her own, he saw it. An envelope on the pillow. His name was not on it, only a single word, carefully written in soft cursive. Lila. He sat on the edge of the bed and opened it with trembling hands. Inside, the letter was written in blue ink, slightly smudged as if tears had blurred the lines. Sweetheart, you're the first person in a long time to call me Mommy. I didn't know how much I needed to hear that until you did. But before I can be someone's mother, I have to learn how to believe I deserve to be. There are pieces of me I'm still stitching back together, parts of my heart that forgot what safety felt like. I want to be the kind of woman you can look up to, not just for cookies or drawings or lullabies, but for staying, for being strong, for choosing love over fear. So for now, I have to go. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. Tell your daddy that he gave me something no one else ever has, the space to be real. And I hope one day I'll be brave enough to walk back through that door, not as someone passing through, but as someone who finally knows where she belongs. Love always, Isabel. Elliot didn't realize how tightly he had gripped the paper until the edges crumpled in his hand. He stared at the words. Again. She had left, but not to run away. This time, she had left to learn how to come back. Still, the ache was sharp. Later that evening, Lila climbed onto the couch beside him, clutching her bear, eyes wide and quiet. Daddy? She asked. Did Mommy leave because I wasn't good? Elliot's heart shattered. No, sweetheart, he said, gathering her into his arms. She left because she needed to remember how strong she is. Lila pressed her face into his shirt. Will she come back? He closed his eyes, resting his chin on her hair. I think she wants to, but sometimes love needs time. Lila nodded slowly, her tiny fingers wrapping around his. Then we'll wait, she whispered. That night, Elliot sat in the quiet of the living room long after Lila had fallen asleep, holding the letter once more. And for the first time in years, he let himself cry, not just from sadness, but from hope, because this time, it did not feel like goodbye. It felt like a promise. The gallery was aglow in soft gold light, strings of fairy lights woven into white linen drapes. Warm jazz hummed gently through the air as guests in tailored suits and elegant dresses mingled among displays of vibrant textile art, flowing dresses on mannequins, and framed sketches filled with motion and emotion. At the heart of the room stood the centerpiece, a dress unlike any other. Not flashy, not couture, just quiet, elegant, and achingly human. Delicate hand-stitched threads wove along the hem in the shape of tiny holding hands. Isabel stood to the side of the stage, her blonde hair swept into a loose braid, eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for something, or someone. She had done it. After months of rebuilding her name, her career, and her courage, she was here, presenting her first official collection as lead designer at a charity fashion gala, supporting women in need. But even surrounded by praise, applause, and flashbulbs, something was missing. Her eyes flicked toward the small wooden stage at the end of the room, where the final speaker was being introduced. "And now," the host said with a warm smile, "we have a very special reading by a very special little girl." Gasps of gentle delight rippled through the audience as Lila Monroe walked onto the stage, dressed in a soft pink dress with hand-embroidered daisies, holding a crumpled piece of paper in both hands. Her brown curls bounced with each step, and her voice, though small, carried with steady clarity. "My name is Lila," she said. "I once had just a daddy. He's very smart and serious and makes the best waffles. But sometimes he was sad." She paused, looking directly at Isabel. "Then one day, we met someone. She had cold hands but a warm heart, and she didn't laugh at me when I called her mommy." A hush fell over the room. She didn't stay long, but she left pieces of herself with us, like songs, and hugs, and soup that tastes like love. Isabel covered her mouth, tears already slipping past her lashes. Lila unfolded her paper and continued, voice trembling now. "So this is my poem. Home is not the walls around me, or the pillows on my bed. Home is when she sang to me and kissed my sleepy head. Home is where my daddy smiles and holds her hand so tight. Home is where my mommy is, and maybe that is tonight." The applause was gentle, reverent. Isabel was frozen. She barely felt the crowd watching her as she stepped forward, slowly. And then she saw him, Elliot, emerging from the side of the room, holding something carefully in his hands. A wooden frame. Inside it, behind clear glass, was the silk scarf she had wrapped around Lila that first snowy night. The scarf that had absorbed more than warmth. It had absorbed the moment everything changed. He stopped in front of her and held it out. "I framed the day I met you," he said, voice low, eyes shining. "That's when home returned." She stared at the scarf, at his hands, and then up at him. "I thought I left too much damage behind to ever deserve a future," she whispered. He whispered, "And I thought keeping people away would protect what little I had left," Elliot replied. "But it turns out, letting you in gave us more." Her lip trembled. "I kept something too," she said softly, reaching into the inner pocket of her coat. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, creased, slightly torn at the edges. Elliot recognized it instantly. The note he had left beside her teacup that first night. "You're not invisible." She unfolded it gently and held it out. "You were the first to see me again. Not the headlines, not the mistakes, just me." He nodded, stepping closer. "I want to see all of you, without fear, without running." Isabel looked over to the stage where Lila waited, hope stretched across her face. Isabel's voice cracked as she whispered, "Then I think I'd like to come home." Lila leapt from the stage and barreled into Isabel's arms, her laughter ringing like music. The crowd erupted into warm applause, not for fashion or fame, but for something more rare, for family found and chosen. The morning light spilled softly through the kitchen window, painting golden streaks across the wooden floor. A gentle sizzle echoed from the counter where Lila stood on a small step stool, pressing the edge of a cookie cutter into a sheet of buttery dough. Isabel stood beside her, sleeves rolled up, flour dusting her cheeks like powdered snow. "Do not forget the hearts," Lila reminded seriously. "Hearts mean love." "Of course," Isabel replied, smiling. "How could I forget the most important shape?" In the doorway, Elliot leaned against the frame, arms crossed, quietly watching the two girls, one by birth, one by heart. There was something sacred in the way they moved together now. No tension, no wondering, just ease, just presence. as if the pieces of a once-broken puzzle had finally clicked into place. He walked in slowly, placed his hands on both their backs, and kissed the crown of Lila's head, then Isabel's. "You know," he murmured, "this is the first morning in years I didn't wake up feeling like something was missing." Isabel glanced up at him, soft and unguarded. On the counter nearby lay a small card, handwritten in delicate script. He picked it up. "Let's learn to stay." Isabel, his throat tightened. In this house, where everything had once felt too silent, too sterile, there was now music again, even if it was only laughter and the clatter of spoons. Later that morning, Elliot led them through the hallway toward a room they had passed many times but never opened. He stopped at the door, turned to Isabel, and said, "I've been saving this space, not knowing why, until now." He opened it. Inside was a sunlit studio. A large drafting table sat by the window. Spools of fabric lined one wall. A mood board was pinned with sketches, blank patterns, color palettes. Beside it, a plaque had been freshly mounted. "Isabel's tomorrow, a place to begin again." Isabel stood in the doorway, breath caught in her throat. "I wanted to give you a place where your hands could create again," Elliot said. "Where your dreams could be bigger than your fears." She stepped inside slowly, running her fingers across the table's smooth edge, then over a bolt of soft linen. Her eyes shimmered, glassy but alight. "I never imagined anyone would build a room for me," she whispered. "You built something in us first," Elliot replied. "This is just returning the foundation." Just then, from the kitchen came a loud, unmistakable shout. "Let's make pancakes, Mommy and Daddy." They turned to the sound of Lila's voice echoing down the hallway. Elliot laughed, the kind of laugh that only comes when the heart has finally settled. "I guess that's our cue," he said, reaching out his hand. Isabel took it. Together, they walked back into the kitchen, where the table was set with mismatched plates, a small mountain of butter cookies in the middle, and a jug of orange juice, slightly tilted on a tea towel. Lila was already pouring syrup into a smiley-face pancake mold. "This one's for Mommy," she declared. As they sat down, the room swelled with the scent of cinnamon and vanilla. Isabel glanced around, then pulled something from her pocket. It was a small handkerchief, old, faded, but lovingly preserved. She unfolded it, revealing a new line of embroidery added beneath the floral stitching she and Lila had been practicing. "Family is not built by blood, but by the hands that hold when you're lost." She placed it in the center of the table. Elliot stared at it for a long moment, then reached out and ran his thumb over the last word. "You held us both when we did not even know we needed it," he said. Isabel looked between the two of them, this man who had learned to love again, and this child who had known how to choose love from the very beginning. She smiled, not with sadness or hesitation this time, but with certainty. They had not found perfection, but they had found home. And sometimes that was the far greater miracle. Sometimes the family we find is the one that finds us first. A little girl's innocent words, a man's silent grief, and a woman who thought she had nothing left to offer. Together they built something no storm could ever take away. Not a perfect life, but a real one. A home born not from walls, but from the hands that held on. If this story stirred something in your heart, if it reminded you that love often comes wrapped in the most unexpected moments, then we invite you to stay. Subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more tales that touch your heart, heal your soul, and remind you that even on the hardest days, tomorrow is still a gift. Thank you for watching.